we'll say studio instead of studio X. And great, thank you for hitting the recording. So the first thing I'll just go over is how can we actually switch profiles? Because I said, right, Studio and Studio X are in the same download. So if for whatever reason we're in Studio, we want to change over to Studio X. And to do that, all we have to do is go to our settings, go to our license and profile, change profile. And here you should have an option. You might have 3 different options: Studio Pro, Studio, and Studio X. We're just going to go ahead and click on Studio X. And if you're not in Studio X, it's going to ask you to restart. So you can just hit yes, and you'll be in Studio X. It'll load back up. From there, I'm going to go into the Start menu. And what I'm going to do is create a new blank task. So from here, all we have to do is give our process a name. I'm going to call this, RPA challenge. I'm going to call it XO2 because I already have a couple of these made. You can name it whatever you like here. You can choose where you'd like to actually save the process. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my UiPath folder. I'm going to find my RPA challenges, and I'm just going to save it in here. But again, wherever makes sense for you guys, right? This is your code, your machine. If you want to save it on your desktop, in your documents, wherever. And this is just going to make a new folder with your process name, and it's going to install kind of all the dependencies and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and create this new project. And, again, if anyone's got, questions, issues up to here, let me know, because this is the first step. We're building a new project here.
And we're doing this as you go along. We're doing this as well.
That is the plan. Okay. Yeah. It is encouraged. Build along, but if you just want to watch and soak it in, that is totally all right too. There might be a test at the end. There's not going to be a test at the end. Cool. Depending on your internet and everything, this downloading dependencies will take more or less time here. But this is Studio or Studio X here that we're looking at. And here I'm just going to do like a brief familiarization. You don't necessarily have to follow along this part. I'm just going to kind of show you, this is a new tool. It's a development tool, right? This is where we're actually writing the code or developing the bots, if you will. So being this development environment, it's really customizable to your experience. So if it looks a little different, if things are in different places, that is totally okay. This is just my preferred personal layout here. And so I'll start by just saying the way we build these bots is we have activities. So for me, my activities pane is on my left side here. And you see I've got just some activities listed. When we're talking about UiPath bots, we're talking about these automations emulating things that humans can do on their desktop. So when I'm using my desktop, I do a lot of clicking, I do a lot of typing, I use browsers, I use Excel, right? These are all kind of activities that I do. So if I just go in the search bar and search for something like a click, right? We'll see we have click activities, we have type activities, right? All those things that, again, humans are going to do on a computer. I'll also say, of course, these bots are really just software or programs. So they can do things that you'd imagine a program doing, like calculations, maybe connecting to databases, APIs, that kind of stuff as well. So I'll just put that out there. What we're going to do to actually build these bots is we're going to use these activities to create, a workflow process, and we're just going to drag and drop them into this middle pane here. And I'll say too, there's 3 ways to actually add activities into this pane here. We can drag and drop, and you see there's like a no sign until I get to the plus. So that's just a little note about this. If you're dragging and dropping, you've got to drag it over the plus. You can also, of course, just double click on an activity here, and it will pop it in. And then there's one more way. You can actually click this plus sign here, and these will be the same activities that we can find up here. So 3 different ways. There's going to be a lot of ways to do the same thing. That's, again, just part of the fun here. And also say too, I said you can like move things around. Things can look different. So for me, my activities are on the left here. But if I grab this bar in this kind of like, I don't know, patterned area here, I can actually drag and drop this. And then, I can have it floating wherever I want. If I'm dragging and dropping, you see I get these side docks here. Now I have my activities on the right. So again, you don't have to change this if you don't want to. I'm just saying, this is ways to make your tool look a little different. Sometimes we'll have this properties pane here. If you have these windows that are stuck or open, you can hit this little pin button for the auto hide, and that will hide a window or lock it in. So again, just so you know, customizable experience here. So what I'm going to do now is introduce the process that we're going to be automating. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this website here, rpachallenge.com. And what we're going to do is we're going to follow the instructions here, and we're going to build an automation that does this automatically. And I've already gone ahead and downloaded this Excel sheet. If you guys want to download that Excel sheet in the background, that would be great. You can put it wherever you'd like, but I'm going to put it in my project folder. So by the way, if you ever forget where you have created that project, you can always go into Studio and you can hit the project dropdown and you can hit open project folder. And that should just open your Windows Explorer wherever you created your project. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll actually download this Excel sheet again, and I'll put it in this project workflow here. So I'm just going to go to my location, and I'm going to save it in my project directory here. I'm going to just leave the name challenge.xlsx. I'll open this up so we can see what it looks like. And we see that we've got 10 rows of data that correspond to the fields on this website here, right? And so the challenge is we're going to build an automation to go ahead and do data entry, right? Normally I could come in here, I could copy and paste his first name, right? I can hit the submit button. And as you see, these fields, every time I hit submit, they randomly kind of generate around the page. So this would be, pretty annoying to do by hand. And again, right, we're building an automation to do this. This could represent, any sort of like data entry kind of process that we're doing here. We're also, right, we're going to be reading data from Excel. We're going to be iteratively looping through this data here. We're going to do that data entry, right? We're writing this into a website here. But I'll just say, right, these bots can do a lot more than just Excel and websites. So this is really just like a representative data source. Again, this could be a database. It could be coming from another website or another file or something like that. And this website here, right, this could be like an ERP system. Maybe you have an Oracle system, SAP or ServiceNow or Salesforce, right? Or something like that, right, you need to do some data entry in. So that's kind of what we're representing here with this, the challenge. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and actually, we're going to start building this thing here, right? And we'll go ahead and, I'm just going to think about the process for a second, right? The first thing I need to do is, of course, download that Excel sheet. And I just did that manually, right? If there's time, maybe we'll go into how we could download that. Maybe that's like an extra exercise. I'm just going to download it manually, right? I have it in my my project directory here. And the first thing I want my automation to do, or my bot to do, is to actually open up this browser, right? I want it to go to this rpachallenge.com. From there, I'm going to click the start button, and then I'm going to start typing in the fields, and we'll hit submit, right? And that's essentially the challenge, or those are all the steps that we need to perform. So when we're doing RPA development, bot building, it's going to be very step by step. And essentially, we're actually going to be completing that process manually as we're automating it. But then, the end goal is we build an automation and we never have to do it manually again. So I'm going to go ahead and do that first step here. So now we can follow along, and I'm going to go ahead, and the first activity I'm going to find is something called a use application / browser. You can search for it, or if it's, if you see it there, just go ahead, drag and drop it, double click it, whichever you prefer. And this is going to be the first step, right? Because this is the first activity that we want the bot to execute. We want it to use an application or a browser. And here we're using a browser. I'm using Chrome. If you're using IE or something else, that's fine too. As long as we have the extension installed, we'll find that out pretty quickly. And so with all these activities, what we're going to do is we're going to essentially tell the bot what we want to do, and then show the bot where we want to do it. So I'm telling the bot I want to use an application, a browser, and now I want to show it which one I'm using. So again, I have it open in the background right here. And now all I have to do is click this button. These are actually buttons here. This indicate application to automate. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And here, if I'm highlighting my my window, my Chrome window, I'll see that the whole window is highlighted, and it determines this is an application, and I can just click anywhere to select the application. And if everything is going all right, if we have our extensions installed, we should see that the title changes, right? It says, okay, we're using a browser, we're using Chrome, and we even see the URL in here, this rpachallenge.com. So that's a good sign, right? That means that we are good to go. The bot can communicate with the browser. It even pulled that URL out. So I'll just ask, did anyone get any errors doing this use browser activity so far?
Yeah, I didn't have it said I didn't have the extension.
Gotcha. Yeah, so if you don't have the extension, you can go through the prompts to install the extension. You'll probably have to close Chrome. It should only take like 20 seconds. So if you want to do that really quickly and see if that works, great. If that's not going to work, if you're on like a GFE or you're not an admin on your machine or something, then you should be able to just use Internet Explorer and you should not need any extension. All right, so I'm just going to kind of keep going, but please let me know if that works or doesn't work. So the next thing we're going to do is actually we're going to click the start button, right? We want to tell the robot to click the start button. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to find another activity. I'm going to find it another way here. I'm going to click this plus button and I'm going to search for a click activity. Now we see 3 different clicks here, right? 2 of them are for SAP. We don't need those right now, right? We just need a regular, good old click here. So just looking for a click activity. And from here, right, again, we've told the bot what to do. Now we need to tell it where to do it. So I'm going to indicate in Chrome where to click. And now we should see a similar kind of targets following our screen, following our mouse. But instead of targeting the whole application, they're going to be able to target individual fields here. So this is what we call robotic vision in UiPath. And this is actually a technology we spent about 3 years developing before we even became an RPA company. And so this is how our robots look at a screen and recognize things like, oh, this is a text box, or oh, this is a button. So if you go ahead and you highlight the start button and just click on it, right, because that's where we want to target, we see that we've got a target set now. From here, it's actually going to now do one more thing. If I keep moving my mouse around, we see it's become a blue anchor. So we have the ability to anchor as well. And instead of just a target, we can provide a little bit extra information to make our robots even more robust. So I'm just going to target an anchor that is on this page. And here I'll just target the download Excel button. So now we have an anchor and a target. And this is going to help us when fields start moving around. So I'll just say for this start button, we don't actually need an anchor. We're adding extra information, right? The start button is always in the same place. It's pretty easy for the bot to find. But for those fields that are going to move around, that anchor is going to be really important. So it never hurts to add an anchor, but there are times when you need it and there are times where you don't. So I'll just say that. From here, once we have our target and our anchor selected, we can either highlight the check button, hit the or hit like enter on our keyboard, hit confirm over here. I'm just going to hit enter on my keyboard. And we should be back in Studio where we have 2 activities now, use browser and the click button. And I'll ask, did that Chrome extension work for you?
I just went ahead and just accepted it. It didn't.
It did not. Okay, so yeah, do you have Internet Explorer on your machine?
Yeah, I have Explorer up.
Okay, yeah, so let's just do the same thing in Explorer. It should be exactly the same. It should be the same, yeah.
Yeah, could you please go through that again? I had to exit Chrome for the extension to install.
Yeah, of course. So I'll show it the same. I'll show a different way here, but the same thing. So if you've already dropped your activity into your workspace, by the way, and you need to change it, right? Maybe I clicked on the wrong thing or something. What you can always do is click on these options menu, and you can hit indicate target on screen. So if you don't have this activity, we're using a use application or browser activity, and you can indicate the application to automate. If you already have it here and it's already set, no worries. If you have it here and it's set on something else, we can hit indicate target on screen. We're just going to select anywhere in our browser. If we're using IE, that's fine. If we're using Chrome, that's fine. And we should see it's going to recognize the browser you're using and the URL that it's on. From there, we're looking for a click activity. And we're just going to go ahead and indicate that start button. And we also gave it an anchor of the download Excel, but to be honest, you don't actually need that for this one. So if you just have the target over the start button, you can hit the confirm button, you can hit enter, and should pop us back into Studio in a second here. You saw how that actually took a lot longer because I didn't have the anchor there. So it's making the bot do a little bit more work too. So sometimes, I'd say an anchor is always the safe thing to do. All right, we all caught up? I'm just gonna keep moving if we're good then. So we've now told the bot to open a browser and click the start button, right? The next thing we need to do is we need to read our Excel sheet, right? We need to start going into an Excel so we can get all this data out of it. So I'm going to go back into Studio and I'm going to find an activity called use Excel file. We'll drop that in right under our start button. And this is going to ask us for a couple things here. The first thing is just the Excel file. It's going to ask us to tell it what file we're talking about. So we've already gone and downloaded that file. So you can hit this browse for file and you can just locate it. If it's in your project directory, it will open right to your project directory. So it's just convenient. But if it's anywhere else, just go and find it in your file explorer. And here it says reference as Excel. That's fine. That's just the name we're going to use to reference it later. I'm just going to change it and I'm going to call it challenge data. And we'll see where that comes into play later, but I'm just going to call it challenge data. And by default, these two options are checked. I'm actually going to disable them because we don't need to save any changes. And if the workbook's not already created, if it doesn't exist, we don't want to create a new blank workbook, right? We want to make sure that we're using that challenge data that's already there. So I'm just going to disable those two. And now from here, right? Okay, so this is telling the robot to use this Excel file. Now, what we realize is we want to actually do the same kind of data entry. We want to do the same process for each one of these rows, right? So we can, what we can call this is we can do these activities in a loop here. Right? Because we know we want to type first name, last name, company. We want to type all this data into this field here, but we want to do it 10 times, right? And every time we want to do it for each different row. So for each row, we want to complete the same type into kind of activities. So that's what we're going to do in Studio. We're going to go ahead and look for a for each Excel row. For each Excel row activity, Also, by the way, these activities, right, if you just highlight them, you can see a little explanation, right? Repeats the contained activity once for each row in the specified sheet, range, or table. So, right, that's exactly what we need to do. So we're going to drag this in to our use Excel file. All right, from here, what we're going to be able to do now is we need to tell it the range that we'd like to go for each one of these rows, right? So what we can do is we can come in here and in this in range, we can find this plus button. And remember when I renamed my Excel to challenge data, my reference as, if you left it as Excel, that's fine. You're going to see whatever you called it right here. And what this is this is an integration with Excel. So we can actually now read everything that's in the Excel workbook here. So from challenge data, we want everything in sheet 1, right? Because this is just called sheet 1. We want all the data here. So that's all I've done. I've gone challenge data, sheet 1. We see that's the range that we're using here. And the last thing I'm going to do is enable this option has headers. So this is the first row in the range is a header row. And that's true, right? Our first range here is our first row is all headers. So that's going to be helpful in a second. So I'll enable this has headers. Okay, from here, now we're going to start to get into the actual data entry, right? We know that the first row is headers. Now on our second row and all the rest of the rows, right? We want to take this data and we want to type it into our RPA challenge. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll come back into our studio and I'm going to search for a type into activity. And I'm going to bring that type into our loop here, into our for each Excel row. And again, right, we've told the bot now we want to type. Let's tell it where we want to type. Or I guess, we want to say, what are we going to type here? Well, we're going to end up typing all these fields, right? But I'm going to start with the first name. So we're going to type the first name. So I'm going to tell it where to type first. I'm going to indicate in Chrome. And I'm going to find the first name box, right? This is the text box. It might look different on your screen, right? These are going to jumble around, but I'm going to find the first name text box. And I'm just going to click on that. And here we see that Studio actually found an anchor automatically for us, right? And it's anchoring on that first name. So that's just built into the tool, right? If it can automatically find an anchor, it will. Sometimes you have to help it along, but this is perfect, right? This is what we want. We want to type into our target of our input box with our anchor on our label for first name. I'll confirm this. So now we've told this we want to type into first name. Now let's tell it what to type, right? We want to type that first name from our Excel sheet. So what I can do is I can say type this. I can find our plus button here. And now we have two pieces of data, right? We have our Excel sheet challenge data and we have our current row. And since we enabled this has headers button, what this is going to do is it's going to read your Excel sheet and it read all those headers, first name, last name. And so now what I'm saying is grab the current row and grab the value in the first name column. And that makes sense because, right, if we look at our first row here, the cell from our first names column is going to be John. Then it's going to be Jane, then Albert, right? So this is how we're going to find a value out of this entire row. All right, so I'm going to pause here for questions. Are people tracking? If we don't see these headers here, it's probably just because we forgot to check this option. These little check boxes can really change how things are working. So a lot of time I forget to do this and then I come in here and I'll, well, A, B, C, D, that's not as helpful. So if I check has headers, we'll see we've got all of our rows here.
And I would just throw this out. Good tip. Hit save, because I've definitely been doomed a few times by not doing that.
That is a great tip. Thank you. Yes, the save button is your friend. By the way, I'm a big hotkey guy. So if you highlight any of these buttons, you'll see the hotkeys too. So Control S, it's a good just habit to get into. I guess a fourth way to even add activities, if you see that it says Control Shift T, it's kind of a big one, right? You can actually hit Control Shift T to find activities as well. Oops. So anyway, this is I want to add in one more step here, and then I think this is a good time to test our bot. Probably should have tested it before, to be honest, but let's go ahead and add in one more step. What I want to do is I'm going to add in one more click and click this submit button, right? Because we're just typing the first name. And if I don't click the submit button, it's going to go through all those loops, right? And it's going to just add it in to this field here. So I want to click submit and add in the rest. So we'll go back into Studio. We'll find a click activity. What is going on? Oh my goodness. I gave it too many hotkeys. All right, so all the way at the bottom of my automation, right after my type into, still within my loop, I'm going to find a click activity. And I'm going to indicate the submit button. And here I'm not going to give it an anchor. I'm just going to confirm it with just the target submit. Submit is a unique field. It's it will be fine without an anchor. Okay, so now is a good time to test my automation. And what I like to do before I test it is to kind of clear my environment. So I like a clean screen. I would close all my Chrome windows, but I'll leave that one open. I closed my RPA challenge. And from here, right, I'm going to go ahead and hit the run button. I expect this to open a browser, click the start button, read my challenge data, go through and type in the first name, and then click submit, right? I haven't done all the fields. I've just done the first name. I know, but okie dokie. This is an interesting one, but essentially it's saying we've detected multiple Excel files. So I'm going to go ahead and just close my Excel files. And I'll hit yes here. And we can see, right, my hands off the keyboard, right, our bot is actually typing in all of those names and clicking that submit button. Pretty neat. So yeah, this is now perfect time if anyone's bot is not doing all those things, let's talk about it. And if we're all caught up, I've got some more things to show as well. We can talk about kind of optimizations, how to make this thing run faster, how to make it run in the background. But first of all, yeah, is everybody's bot working?
Yeah, I'm actually way behind. It didn't. I didn't get the target, and I'm just having some problems with my browser itself.
Yeah,
Same.
no problem. So would you like me to go through it again, or would you like to share your screen and maybe we could kind of walk through it together?
Maybe it might be a good debugging opportunity for the class.
Yeah, let's do it. Excellent.
I can share the screen. Make sure I picked the right.
All right, cool. And we can see, and thank you for sharing, by the way. Okay, cool. So by the way, too, just to make this so you can see a little better, on the output window at the bottom there, all the way on the right, there's like that little pin icon. You can click that and it will just hide that output window, that one right there. Yeah, so now you have a little more room to work with. Okay, great. So yeah, this looks good so far, right? You have Internet Explorer, you're using that application. And from here, we want to do a click, right? So the first thing we want to do is click that start button. So do you have that page still open? The browser still open?
Someone just started the recording.
Hey, Mike, it's Keenan. Sorry, I was just bouncing to rooms, and I think it's the recording's following me.
No worries.
How's the exercise coming along? It's like your first name.
Going well. Yeah, I mean, we're just stepping through things here. What was your, when did you want to circle
I
back
think
to the main room?
maybe we'll come back to the room like 10, 12, like at the top of the hours. That can be enough time. Too much time.
That sounds good for me.
All right, cool. All right, well then I'll let you get back to it, and we'll come back.
Thanks, Keenan.
Thanks.
All right, so like I mentioned, we need to tell it what we're typing into that field. Of course, we want to type in the first name. So since I'm using this for each Excel row activity, and since I check this box has headers, this is really simple. All I have to do is click on the plus.
Hopefully the bot will be able to identify all the fields and fill them all in. So as you can see, I mean, we built an entire bot here in about 30 minutes. It's fairly easy, just pointing and clicking. UiPath's great that, you know, it's easy to navigate around. It's easy to use. You don't have to have a programming background or anything like that. So it looks like it found all the fields correctly there. So just need to make sure it gets the rest of these, and at the end, we'll see our results. Hopefully we'll have 100.
Hey, Teak, it's Keenan. Looks like you're wrapping up the build here.
Yeah, we're just doing one last run through just to make sure the bot completes all the fields correctly.
Okay. A few groups are a little bit behind, but maybe 5 to 7 minutes more. So maybe we can address any questions out there, or see if folks had any issues as they were building this. But we'll come back into the main session, like I said, about 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Of the process.
This meeting is being recorded.
Apologies, Renan.
Yeah, sorry. We can change the automation of the type into and the click activities to be simulated. And what that's going to do is actually make the process significantly not only faster, but will also let us use this automation in the background, meaning that if I were to start clicking around with my mouse physically around here or using my keyboard, it potentially could impact the accuracy of this automation. But using simulate type into activities and simulate clicks, this process can run in the background. For instance, at the same time while I might be typing up an email or working on a different Excel spreadsheet or you know, optimizing my time elsewhere, you could say. So I think we're nearly at the end here, and I'll show you all how to change that. And then I think we were looking to hop back into the main room around 3:50. So I'll try to keep us on that schedule.
So yeah, we've got a few extra minutes here, Renan. So we're gonna push it maybe another 5, 7 minutes or so before we bring everyone back.
Understood.
But looks like you're doing great. So we continue to bounce around, and then I'll post a message saying, 1 minute warning, and we'll bring everyone back in.
Understood. Thanks for the heads up.
Mm-hmm.
Right, we would do every type into for all the fields. I'm just doing the first name because it's going to be the same kind of procedure, right? But I'm looking for a type into activity. And then from there, I'm telling it where to type. So for first name, I'm going to highlight the text box, target the text box. And Studio automatically actually found that anchor first name. So that's good to go. We'll confirm that. And I'm going to tell it what to type. We want the current row's first name. And to make sure you see that all the headers there, we need to have this has headers button enabled. And then the last one is just one more click for that submit button. What I'm going to do too is I'm just going to show you how we can actually optimize this too, because right as we saw, this ran a little bit slowly and it actually used my mouse and my keyboard while this was doing this. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the properties pane, this properties pane on the right side here. And what I'm going to do is actually I'm selecting my use browser. So this is where all my activities are going to take place. And I'm going to find something called the input mode. And here we actually have a drop down where we can select a couple different options. It's defaulted to hardware events. And that's why we actually see my mouse moving around and it's actually clicking and typing. What I'm going to do is change this to simulate. Simulate is going to make all this happen in the background. And if I go ahead and hit run, we're going to see this bot is now, you see it's just pasting. It's pasting that whole name. It's not typing it letter by letter. It's also not moving my mouse. So I can drag this screen around. I could minimize this. I can even go and like type into other fields while this is happening. And our bot is still going to work in the background. So that's just a little bit of showing you how to do some optimization, make this thing run faster. And that was the input mode, changing it to simulate here. All right, so it looks like we've got 3 minutes before we return back to the main session. So yeah, happy to talk about it. If we, let's see what else.
Yeah, so this is Keenan, everyone. Maybe I'll cue the audience here. Any questions out there for Lewis? Was anyone successful in building their first bot?
Yeah, this is Eric. So I just have a question. Maybe it's a little beyond this, but what's the difference when you get to current row and row? Because I know in Studio, I've had to fix current row to row many times for it to run.
So I'm not sure if there's like a difference. I mean, yeah, I guess the way that the data is like presented is a little different here, right? So essentially this is just the name of your current row. So it's essentially creating a variable. But Studio X is going to kind of abstract a lot of that for you. So we're not really going to have to necessarily think about, okay, like how do I call this item from this particular row or something like that? I mean, right, well, just to like visualize it, this for each Excel row, we've told it the range is sheet 1. So this is our entire sheet 1. And so the current row is the first time it's going to be this row 1, second time it's going to be row 2, right? So we've enabled has headers here. So it's going to read this first row as header data. And so now that's how, when you go in here and you say, I want the cell from the current row under this column. So if I choose first name for the current row, the first time it's going to be John, second time it's going to be Jane. So does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
see it visually.
Yeah. Visualizing it helps. I mean, I know what you're talking about in Studio, right? You would probably go in and actually write the expression. So I'll just show you, right? You kind of can do that in Studio X here. So it'd be something like this, right? It might be a little different function, but this is essentially the same thing, right? Your current row, grab the cell from the first name column.
Nice. Cool.
Another question, when we get back to the main room, we're gonna look at our intelligent automation capability with document understanding. Does anyone here have a use case or a business process that uses documents as kind of like a paper-based process, a PDF or email or anything like that?
It could be like something with PDF. There's like data in a PDF file. It needs a copy and paste or
Yeah, a form of sorts, or invoices is a very popular one. Some sort of document-based process. My customers in the government have all kinds of documents that they have incorporated into processes, but anyways, just a preview of that, we're going to be seeing it. So I think it is that time. I'm going to close the breakout rooms and bring everybody back in. Here we go.
cool. Thanks, team 2. Good work.
Team 2.